It was a quiet day on the edge of the barren colony. A human who had lived most of his life as a mechanic on the dusty world of Planetarium found solace in the routine. The sky was a dull orange, stretching endlessly over the flat plains that had long since been stripped of their resources. Yet for him, this was home. The colony wasn't much: a handful of prefabricated buildings, a modest energy plant, and a few other settlers scattered across the land, trying to make a living on a planet far from the bustling centers of civilization. That day, like every other, he spent his time fixing equipment for the settlers or working on his small ship, trying to make enough to keep him afloat. He didn't mind the solitude. He preferred it, but it didn't take long for that quiet to be shattered. The first sign that something was wrong came as a sudden flash in the sky. At first he thought it was just the sun reflecting off a satellite, or perhaps another ship passing by. But then came the thunderous roar. The ground shook beneath his feet, and the roar grew louder. Closer. He dropped his wrench, eyes scanning the horizon as a streak of bright fire shot across the sky, followed by a cloud of smoke. The ship was coming down. Fast. His heart raced. Without thinking, he grabbed his communication device and called the colony's main station. But the static-filled response told him everything was broken. The colony's systems were down, most likely from the shockwave of the crash. There was no time to waste. He grabbed his bag, stuffed it with basic tools, and sprinted toward the crash site, the dry earth kicking up behind him as he ran. As he neared the location, he could see the wreckage, a massive spaceship, its hull smoking and sparking as it dug into the dirt. The craft had crashed hard, its impact carving a deep trench through the surface of the planet. But, despite the obvious damage, he couldn't shake the feeling that there might be survivors. What could possibly have caused this? He wondered, panting as he reached the site. The ship's exterior was scarred, its once pristine surface now covered in a web of cracks. As he approached cautiously, he spotted movement in the wreckage. The human instinct to help kicked in. He rushed toward the fallen vessel, but before he could reach it, a figure emerged from the wreckage. A woman, covered in dust and soot, staggering out from behind the ship's wreckage. She was tall, with an ethereal quality that seemed out of place on this desolate planet. Her clothes were unlike anything Incertain had ever seen. Thin, almost metallic, glinting under the sun, and adorned with intricate designs that spoke of a high-born status. Her eyes were a deep shade of blue, the kind that seemed to see beyond the surface of things. As she noticed him, she straightened up, though it was clear she was struggling to maintain her balance. Blood trickled down from a gash on her forehead, but her eyes remained sharp. "Help me," she said, her voice a smooth yet commanding tone. "I need to get to my sister!" Before Incertain Name could respond, another figure appeared from the wreckage. "I am O.N." This one was shorter, with features that were somehow more intense. Her posture was more regal, her clothing resembling the first, but she seemed to carry herself with a quiet authority. The second woman, though seemingly unharmed, looked out over the wreckage with a cold calculation. "You should not have come here," the second woman said. "This planet was never meant for you to be on." "What are you talking about?" asked confused. "You crashed here, didn't you?"
"I'm just trying to help." The first woman spoke again, her tone slightly more desperate.
"We did not intend for this to happen, but we must leave, both of us. The situation is worse than you understand." "Leave, guard?" asked. "Where are you going? You can't even walk, and your ship's in pieces." The second woman approached with a purpose, her eyes narrowing at him. "My sister is right. The ship's destruction is but the beginning of something far larger, far more dangerous." At that moment, he realized that these women were not from his world. They didn't belong to the same universe he knew. These were not simple travelers or settlers who had made a mistake. They were royalty, he realized, from somewhere far more advanced than anything he could imagine. Their clothes, their words, even the way they moved, it was all far too precise, too deliberate. I'm sorry, he said, taking a step back. I don't know who you are, but you need to leave. The second woman looked at him with a steely expression, her lips curling into a thin line. You have no idea what you are dealing with.
Both of us are far more than you can imagine. You've made a mistake.
Before BIR, instead more, the one who had seemed more vulnerable, stepped forward again. We are princesses, she said, her voice tinged with an almost imperceptible strain. We come from two very different places. My name is insert name, and this is my sister. Our worlds are at war, and now you're involved. After the dramatic encounter with the two princesses, couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just been irrevocably changed. The weight of their words echoed in his mind as he watched them move toward the wreckage of their ship, each with a different purpose. While the first princess seemed to seek a way out, her urgency palpable. The second, one remained calm, as though the destruction around her meant little in the grand scheme of things. For a moment, he simply stood there, confused and overwhelmed. His life, up until now, had been a simple existence, repairing equipment, fixing small ships, working with mechanics in a colony that had barely made a dent in the galaxy. Now, here he was, standing on the edge of a strange and dangerous new reality, a part of something far bigger than himself. As the two princesses worked together to assess the damage, insert name took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. Despite the tension between them, it was clear that he had no choice but to help. These women were not ordinary travelers. They were royal figures, each carrying with them the weight of their respective civilizations, their fates intertwined in a dangerous game of politics and power. I'm sorry I didn't catch your names, said finally, breaking the silence as he stepped forward. He couldn't keep standing there, uncertain. He needed answers.
You said you were princesses!
From where? The first princess in Sistan-neared name looked up at him with a mix of appreciation and fatigue. Her face was pale, though the blood from her earlier injury had slowed to a trickle. Her eyes, intense and commanding, softened slightly as she met his gaze. My name is insert name, and this is my sister.
We are from... Faction number 7 didn't even look at him when she spoke.
She was busy scanning the wreckage, looking for anything useful.
We come from two very different worlds.
It's a peaceful kingdom, dedicated to diplomacy and knowledge. My sister rules it. She paused for a moment, her eyes sharp as she turned to face him. I am from other faction name. An empire built on strength and conquest. Tried to make sense of the situation.
So, your enemies? The first princess sighed, brushing a hand through her long dark hair.
We were, until now.
Her sister spoke next, her voice colder. The galaxy has shifted.
The war between our factions is not what it seems. We are both trapped in a web of lies. At that moment, instead of realized that the crash wasn't just an accident, it was the result of something far more complex, a chain of events set into motion long before his involvement. What do you mean? He asked, his curiosity now outweighing his fear. We came here because we have no choice, explained. Our factions are on the brink of war, and it's not just our war anymore. A greater power is pulling the strings. The second princess's eyes narrowed, and she glanced at her sister, who gave her a quick nod. We were sent to seek help from a neutral party. The war has escalated beyond what we can control.
Our factions are manipulated by a third force, a shadow faction that seeks to control both of us.
But why me? Instead asked. I'm just a mechanic. I've never been involved in anything like this. You are human, inserted Nam. The third force has underestimated the strength of your kind. You are more important than you realize. The words struck him like a slap. He was just a simple mechanic. How could he be involved in something so far-reaching? He was used to fixing things, not fixing galaxies. Yet here he was, standing on a desolate planet, being asked to help two alien princesses save their worlds. "What do you need me to do?" he asked, his voice uncertain. The first princess, uncertain name, stepped closer.
We need to get to the heart of the conflict. My sister and I have the knowledge, but we cannot stop what's coming alone.
The third faction wants to destroy both our civilizations, and they've planted seeds of distrust between us. You must help us bring peace. The second princess finally spoke, her voice cool and measured. Your role will not be easy. You will have to decide which of us you can trust. But know this, if you choose to side with the wrong one, it could mean the end of everything. The tension between the two sisters was palpable. It wasn't just a political rivalry. It was personal, and sense it in the way they looked at each other, the subtle glances of distrust that passed between them. They had once been allies, but now they were enemies caught in a dangerous game. One would rule, the other would fall. And he was caught right in the middle. "I don't know if I can help you," said, looking down at his hands. "I'm just one person. You are more than you think." "Uncertainty," said, her voice soft yet firm. "Your humanity gives you a perspective that neither of us have. You see things differently."
You can be the bridge between us.
The second princess, uncertain, didn't seem convinced.
He's nothing more than a tool, a pawn. You think the humans can help us? They're nothing but savages.
The first princess flinched at the harsh words, but didn't back down. "No, you're wrong. Is a person, and he can help us." The tension between the sisters grew thick, but it was clear that something deeper was at play here. Something neither of them was willing to admit. "I'll help," said his voice steady. Despite his doubts, despite the overwhelming odds, he knew that he couldn't just turn away from these two women. They were lost in a war they didn't want, and he might just be the key to ending it. But it wouldn't be easy, and just as quickly as the moment had begun, the second princess turned away, clearly frustrated.
Then make your decision.
We'll need to act soon. There's little time left. The first princess nodded. We'll need your help, and we'll need to move quickly.
But we can't trust anyone. Not even our own people.
The morning sun crept slowly across the horizon, casting long shadows over the wreckage of the spaceship. The once pristine ship had now become a twisted heap of metal and wires, its bright hull scarred beyond recognition. But the wreckage wasn't the only thing that had been torn apart. Inside could feel the tension between the two princesses grow by the hour, like a storm waiting to break. They were no longer just royalty from distant factions. They had become something much more. They were players in a deadly game, each determined to outmaneuver the other, and Insert was their unwitting pawn.
Ayo!
As the day wore on, the princesses continued to assess the wreckage, looking for anything they could salvage. Despite the urgency of their mission, they didn't seem to notice the growing distance between them. Watched them both, trying to understand the power struggle that was unfolding before his eyes. The first princess had been kind and desperate for help. She seemed sincere, her words full of genuine concern. But the second, Insert, had never shown a hint of warmth. She was calculating, always watching, always waiting for something, a mistake, a weakness to exploit.
Is there any sign of the tracking device? The second princess asked, her voice sharp as she scanned the wreckage.
The first princess shook her head. No, nothing. "I'm afraid the ship's systems are fried. We'll need to repair it manually, but we don't have the time."
There's always time if you know how to make it,
muttered under his breath, but neither princess paid him any attention. He couldn't help but wonder why they hadn't just contacted their people by now. Surely, with their technology, they could have sent a distress signal or called for help, but there had been no mention of outside support. It was as though they were trapped here, on this planet, alone. As he stood there, lost in thought, Insert approached him. Her eyes, usually so full of purpose, now seemed uncertain. She placed a hand on his arm, as if she needed the connection to steady herself. "We need you," she said quietly, her voice softer than before.
The war has changed. We've been manipulated into fighting for nothing.
My people, my family, they've been lied to. The third faction, they've been pulling the strings behind the scenes, and we didn't even see it. Stared at her, trying to read her emotions. There was something in her eyes, a glimmer of vulnerability that hadn't been there before. He knew it was dangerous to trust her, and yet in that moment, he couldn't help but feel sympathy for her. She was just as much a victim of this war as anyone else.
Who is this third faction?
He asked. What do they want? Her grip tightened on his arm, and she took a deep breath. They are the ones who want control over everything. Both of our factions. They've been using our rivalry to fuel a war that benefits them. They're the ones who've been feeding us lies, manipulating us, and now they've set everything in motion. They've planted seeds of distrust between me and my sister, between all of us.
Your sister? Asked, his voice low with disbelief. Is that what this is all about?
You two fighting? The first princess nodded, her expression grim. It's more than that. My sister and I, we used to be allies. But now...
Now we're enemies, and I'm afraid it's too late to fix it.
Why? Asked, his frustration rising.
If you both know the truth, why not stop it?
Why keep fighting?
It's not that simple, said softly. My sister believes in the old ways, strength, power, and control.
She sees our people as a means to an end, a weapon to wield. She would destroy everything just to keep her power. But you, Incertain said, trying to understand her side. You're different.
I believe in peace, in diplomacy. But the system I inherited, my people, my advisors, they want war.
And now, I fear my own sister will stop at nothing to see that war through. Before Madakai despond, there was a sudden noise, a sharp crack of metal. He turned quickly, his instincts kicking in. The second princess had made her way into the wreckage, looking for something in the ship's remains, but something was wrong. She had been so calm, so controlled, and now she was acting erratically, like a woman driven by desperation.
What's going on?
Asked, moving quickly to her side. She didn't answer at first, but when she turned to face him, her expression was cold. It's too late. You don't understand. You never will. The words hung in the air, and for the first time, he realized the extent of the betrayal. The second princess hadn't been a victim of the war. She had been playing her own game all along. The facade of diplomacy, the pretense of seeking peace, it had all been a lie. You've known about this the whole time, haven't you? Said, his voice growing colder.
You've been using me! Using my trust!
The second princess's lips curled into a faint smile.
You're not as blind as I thought.
Anger flared inside him. He had trusted her. He had believed that she was different, that she had a genuine interest in ending the war. But now, it seemed that everything he had known about her was a lie. You knew what this was all along, he said, his voice tight with fury.
You used me as a pawn in your game, and I was too naive to see it.
The second princess stepped forward, her eyes narrowing.
I didn't use you.
I needed you. You were always meant to be part of my plan.
The truth is, my sister is weak.
She doesn't understand what it takes to lead our people. I do.
I will do whatever it takes to secure our future, even if it means sacrificing those who stand in my way. His heart sank as the realization hit him.
The second princess wasn't just an ally turned enemy. She was a threat, and now that he knew the truth, there was no turning back. in a fit of anger, instead turned away, retreating from the wreckage. His head was spinning. His trust had been shattered, and the princesses, both of them, had used him as a tool in their own struggle for power. He had been nothing more than a pawn in their game, and now he had to make a choice. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, Inside found himself alone, standing in the shadow of the ruined ship. The weight of the decision ahead pressed on him like a heavy stone. He had to choose who to trust, but after everything that had happened, how could he possibly choose? The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for him to make his move. The night fell quietly over the wreckage of the spaceship, the stars above blinking like distant witnesses to the drama unfolding below. Stood alone, feeling the weight of his decision pressing down on him. The betrayal by the second princess. It shattered the fragile trust he had placed in her. He had been nothing more than a pawn in her game, a tool to be used and discarded when no longer needed. The truth was painful, but it also gave him clarity. His mind raced as he thought about the choices before him. On one hand, there was the first princess, who had shown him kindness, who had trusted him, and confided in him. She was the one who wanted peace, who sought to end the war, who wanted to build something better. Yet she had her own faults. Her family, her people, were caught up in a cycle of power and diplomacy that often felt like a never-ending struggle. Could he trust her completely? Or was she just another player in a game where everyone was destined to lose? Then there was insert name, the second princess. She was ruthless, calculating, and ambitious. She had betrayed him, manipulated him, and yet her vision of the future was clear. She wanted control, and she would do anything to get it. But was that enough? Could someone like her be trusted to lead, to bring stability? Or would her lust for power tear everything apart? He had no answers, only questions, only uncertainty. As the night wore on, Insert Ting found himself walking back toward the wreckage. The stars above seemed to mock him, their distant light offering no guidance, no answers. He needed to confront them, both of them, and make his choice. There was no time left to waver. The soft crunch of footsteps behind him caught his attention, and he turned to find Insert Name, the first princess, approaching him. Her face was still marked by exhaustion, but her eyes were sharp, focused. She had seen the pain in his eyes, the doubt that lingered in his heart. "You've been thinking about it," she said quietly, stopping a few feet away from him. "I can see it in your eyes."
"The choice you have to make, I don't know what to do," admitted.
"I don't know who to trust. You both want the same thing, but you're willing to do anything to get it. I don't know if I can be a part of that." She nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving his. "I understand your hesitation. You've seen the darkness in my sister, and you've heard her promises. But what you haven't seen is the heart of what I fight for. The people I care about. The world I want to build."
"You've told me about peace, about diplomacy," said Nine.
But what happens when diplomacy fails? What happens when the other side won't listen? When the war continues?
"What will you do then?"
Her expression softened,
"I'll fight."
but only as a last resort.
I'm not here to destroy. I'm here to save. I believe in a future where we can all coexist, where strength isn't about domination, but unity.
"And your sister?" he asked, his voice tinged with skepticism. "What do you think she'll do?" "She will fight for power," Incertain said, her voice firm but sad. "She believes that the galaxy can only be controlled through strength and fear. She doesn't see the beauty in peace. She thinks the world is too broken to be fixed." "But she's your sister," In said softly.
How can you fight against her? I don't want to. Inside Navy's past managed to pick up. I don't want to. Inside Navy's. How can you fight against her? I don't want to. Answer. Did her? I don't want to. Take the way. Take the dash. Take the dong. Take the dash. Putting her fast into the club.
"For the people who are counting on me. For the future of my people."
I've already lost so much to this war. I can't lose everything now.
There was a long silence between them, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Could see the pain in her eyes. He could see that she truly believed in her cause. But could he believe in her? Could he trust that her vision for peace wasn't just another illusion, another ideal that would crumble under the weight of the galaxy's violence? "Do you really think she'll stop?" asked quietly.
Your sister, even if I help you, do you think she'll just give up? No, instead shaking her head.
She won't. But that's why we need to act quickly.
If we don't, she'll have the galaxy in her grasp before we even know what's happening. He stood in silence for a moment, the gravity of the situation settling in. He had never imagined his life would take such a turn. He had never imagined he would be standing here, caught between two powerful women, each of them with their own vision of the future, each of them willing to sacrifice anything to get what they wanted. In the distance, he could see the faint outline of the second princess, Insert, watching them from the shadows. Her eyes gleamed with a cold intensity that made his skin crawl. She had been waiting for this moment, waiting for him to make his choice. He turned to his off, his voice steady.
What happens if I choose you? She took a step closer, her voice low. Then we fight.
Together, we'll expose the truth. We'll show the galaxy that there is another way. One where power isn't just about control, but about understanding, about collaboration. But what if she's right? Asked Ed. What if peace is impossible? What if you're wrong?
If I'm wrong, said Baleep, said name, said her voice calm but firm, then I'll die trying.
But I won't stop believing that peace is possible. I won't stop trying to make it a reality.
Her words rang in his mind like a challenge. Peace. It sounded so simple, so pure. But the galaxy was full of enemies, of bloodshed and violence. Could he really believe that peace was possible? Could he stand by and let the second princess destroy everything just to maintain her control? And if I choose her? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Her expression hardened, but she didn't look away.
Then you'll be choosing power over everything else. You'll be choosing destruction over creation.
And in the end, you'll be just another soldier in her army.
The weight of her words pressed down on him like 1,000 suns.
He didn't know what to do. He didn't know who to trust. Both princesses had their strengths, their virtues, but each one had shown him their darkness as well. Was it possible to choose between them without losing everything? And then, as though fate had made its decision for him, the second princess stepped forward from the shadows. Her eyes were cold, calculating. "You've made your choice," she said, her voice smooth like silk but laced with a dangerous edge.
I won't ask again. Stand with me, and together we'll rule this galaxy.
Stand against me, and you'll be nothing more than another casualty of war. Someone who had shaped his destiny. Two women who had shaped his destiny. Two women who had fought for his trust and his loyalty. The decision was his. But as he stood there, torn between the two, he knew one thing for sure. Whatever choice he made, his life would never be the same.